We're excited today to have two of our VISTAs, Erin Cohen and Sarah Benedict, who will be discussing nutrition education and some of the resources that we have available. So before I turn that over to them, I just want to remind everyone that you do earn points on the center for attending a webinar. So certainly keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. And I'd also like to thank the National Dairy Council for supporting our monthly webinar series. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Erin and Sarah. And like I said, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to speak up or write in the chat box.
Thanks, Annie. This is Erin Cohen. As Annie introduced earlier, I am the VISTA serving at CKP's national office in DC. I've been here since last June, so my term is nearly up, which means that I've had a good amount of time to get acquainted with CKP's nutrition ed resources and existing curricula, and I'm also working this year with Sarah on developing a new nutrition education curriculum, which we'll talk more about later. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes. Hi, this is Sarah Benedict. I am the AmeriCorps VISTA serving at the Campus Kitchen at Northwestern University. I've also been serving since last June, so my term is also coming to an end, very sadly. I started leading nutrition ed classes my very first week at CKNU, and I've been leading and developing new lessons throughout the year at various sites for different age groups, so have gotten a lot of experience with our various curricula.
Awesome. So to start off this webinar, I'll talk a little bit about the existing curricula that CKP has available on the pantry. Two of these curricula target youth and one is for older adults. Building Blocks for Healthy Kids focuses on nutrition education basics like My Plate. It introduces various food groups and talks about how to incorporate fitness into daily routines. These are more general lessons aimed at providing a fun and interactive but comprehensive nutrition education curriculum. Sowing Seeds for Healthy Kids is a garden-based curriculum that expands upon Building Blocks. This curriculum focuses on the life cycle of plants and understanding the basics of the food system from production, like planting seeds, through distribution. For example, how food gets from a farm or garden to your table. Healthy Living Made Easy is the nutrition ed curriculum that's targeted to older adults. This curriculum is more discussion-based, and it includes topics that are more relevant for seniors, such as managing sugar and sodium intake, how to examine nutrition labels, etc. Based on the audience, this curriculum allows for the possibility to be led as individual, like seminar lessons. So that could mean that you could just do one at a time, or you could choose multiple lessons to do a short series of classes, or you could do a 14-lesson series. All of these resources are, as I mentioned, up on the pantry. They include pre and post tests, different options for activities. There are recipes included in almost all of them. And what I think is one of the really neat features of these three curricula is that there's a teaching guide that accompanies each one. And the teaching guide includes alternate activity ideas, tips for teaching if you're not familiar with how to handle a classroom or manage students. There's just a really wide variety of information included in those teaching guides, and I think that's very valuable. So up next, as I mentioned earlier, Sarah and I have been working a lot this year on developing a new curriculum. It's called Healthy Living for Families, And it is a series of 6 lessons that aims to engage families in conversations about how to eat healthy together, how to eat and cook as a family. Topics in this curriculum include eating healthy on a budget, cooking ahead, so how to plan and meal prep, and eating together. This lesson includes a sort of tech-free activity, which I think is neat. The new curriculum is based partially around discussion for the older students or adults, and also include a kids activity in each lesson. And so the goal of this is to really provide a discussion and fun lesson plan for both kids and adults. And in the end, each lesson brings the families all together for an interactive culinary demonstration. We have not yet piloted this curriculum. Sarah attempted twice at CKNU, but there are issues with turnout at the site that was selected. So that is to say that we're still looking for a site to pilot the curriculum. And we have all of the resources, including lesson plans, pre and post test activities, recipes, and the teaching guide, all ready to go. So if anyone is interested in leading the course at your site, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk with you about how that could work, and we would be very excited about this new curriculum being piloted so that we can fine-tune and tweak it. So yeah, you can just type it in the comment box or reach out to us individually after the webinar if you're interested. So next up, I want to talk a little bit about how to prepare to lead a nutrition education course. So first, if you're looking for a site to lead a nutrition education course, it's helpful to first consider your current partners. For example, do you deliver to any sites that serve youth or older adults who might be interested in hosting a nutrition education course, and who would really benefit from that partnership? If none of your current partners are a good fit, or if you talk to them and they're not very interested, you can then start to reach out to look for different programs in your area. One idea is reaching out to after-school programs. Many after-school programs are eager for free programming to engage their students, especially if they don't have to lead the lessons, if there's an outside teacher coming in and providing this activity for their constituents. You can also look for senior centers or other places where older adults might naturally gather, like low-income housing buildings. Another idea is to reach out to places like OYMCA that might already be hosting some sort of nutrition course. So once you've identified a site and a relevant contact at that site, I would recommend setting up an in-person meeting at the location. This really gives you an opportunity to show them the lesson materials and describe the program in more detail. And it also gives you the chance to explore the space and the resources available. So if you go to the site and you see that the location has a garden, and maybe it's spring or summer or early fall so that the weather will be nice enough to be out in the garden, you could consider teaching sowing seeds, or you could then incorporate additional outside activities or fitness-related activities into a building blocks lesson plan. If the site has a kitchen space, you can make some of the snacks listed in the lesson plans into a more interactive cooking demonstration. You'll also be able to note what supplies you'll need to bring to the course in order to really carry out the lesson. So if you notice that there aren't serving utensils or craft supplies at the site, then you'll need to bring your own. It's really helpful to brainstorm ways to make the lessons, so that adapt the lesson plan to be most effective given the location that you choose. So in terms
Hey, Erin,
of,
we did just we did
Yeah.
have a question in the chat box. I just wanted to
Okay.
throw out there. So Linda had asked, how have you tried to reach the parents and caregivers and the children in thinking about finding sites and establishing those relationships?
Sarah, do you want to go ahead and answer that? You've had, I think, a little more experience working directly with outreach.
Sure. Mostly when we're establishing new sites, we're reaching out to client agency contacts, so maybe a programming coordinator at the site rather than reaching out directly to the parents or children that would be participating in our programs. For the family program that we were trying to pilot, we did do some direct outreach. We're trying to partner with a site that we work with for youth nutrition ed. So we had already interacted with these kids and kind of established ourselves in their minds as a nutrition ed partner. So we sent flyers home with them to the parents. We sent emails. We went to a parent night meeting and pitched the program and seemed to get a lot of interest, but I think we just didn't get the timing right so that it was convenient for everyone to attend. But that's some of the more direct outreach that we've done. But in general, we do work directly with site coordinators, so maybe someone in charge of programming at a YMCA or a Salvation Army type site.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
So after you choose which curriculum you'd like to initiate at a site, the next step is to recruit volunteers. So in terms of how many you want, it's usually a good rule of thumb to have one adult for every 5 to 7 students, if possible. And when you're looking to recruit volunteers, it's helpful to talk to your leadership team, your CKP leadership team, to see who would be interested. You can also reach out to other groups on campus that might be interested, like education majors or dietetics majors. And finally, before you start to lead a nutrition ed course, you want to prepare your materials and have them all ready to go before you start teaching. So as I mentioned earlier, it's helpful to go to the site and see what's available to you there and use that sort of to determine which curriculum you'd like to teach. But it also goes both ways. You can adapt your curriculum to fit what resources are available. So you can always customize your lessons. Each lesson comes with suggested recipes, but if you have ingredients to make a different healthy and relevant recipe, then by all means switch it up. Having said that, you want to make sure that you have all of your craft supplies for kids' activities, ingredients for snacks, and maybe additional food for grocery bags if you're going to send those home with participants, all organized and set before you go in to teach. We have our teaching guides, as I mentioned earlier, that goes into more depth into how to plan out a new nutrition education course, and it kind of goes over a bit more how to prep. And by all means, reach out to us if you're looking for more information or if you're looking for more materials. If you just don't find that you have the resources that are listed in the curriculum available to you.
Great. So just to build on that, we'll talk a little bit about what goes into actually leading a nutrition ed course. So once you've got your location, your dates and times, and have secured some volunteers to help lead your lessons, then you should start to plan out how those lessons will actually look in the classroom. So make sure that you've read through and are familiar with all of the lesson content, and think about how you might relate that content specifically to the group that you'll be addressing. You'll also need to make a plan for administering pre and post tests, and these are short questionnaires that are already developed for all of our existing curricula, and they'll really help you to measure your impact in the classroom. They ask some knowledge-based and some behavior-based questions that relate to each lesson, and it's a great way to collect data on your impact, and then also it then gives you the ability to share that data with the host site to kind of support your program and its effectiveness. So then when you do have that plan in place for the lesson, I always think it's a good idea to get all the volunteers together beforehand. Even if you just meet up for 30 minutes before heading to the site, make sure everyone's really comfortable with how the tasks will be divided up and how the lesson's going to flow. So run through all the various parts of the lesson, make sure they're familiar with how to prepare the snack or the meal if you're providing one, and how to run all the activities. And if you're working with kids and you're able to use an outdoor or a larger space, it's always fun to incorporate physical activity into the lessons. As Erin mentioned, we have some alternative activities available if you need those, or you can do something as simple as like a Simon Says game to warm up and burn off steam and encourage fitness. The picture that we have up on the slide here is from a lesson that I conducted last summer, and we did some relays based around My Plate food groups. So you can get kind of creative with that. And also important to remember, if you're planning on serving food, that at least one of the volunteers or leaders should be ServSafe certified, and make sure everyone's familiar with protocol when preparing and serving food to participants, including using hairnets and gloves and keeping everything at a proper temperature. And one thing that we run into is just staying mindful of allergens when thinking of new recipes that you might want to bring into a classroom. It's always a good idea to stay away from nut products. But if you're working with a site contact who's already familiar with the group, you can just ask ahead about any known allergens. That really helps you to prepare a snack that's going to be accessible to everyone participating in the lesson. And beyond snacks and meals prepared and served within the lesson, we usually try to bring grocery bags for our students as well. I know that not everyone always has the resources to do that, but CCNU has been fortunate to have a very well-stocked pantry, so we've chosen a recipe and included all of the non-perishable ingredients for that recipe in a grocery bag and are able to send the participants home with that grocery bag. And then at the next lesson we can ask, did you prepare this with your family? What did you think? What would you prefer next time? So kind of furthering that discussion about healthy eating and also helping them to engage in a little bit more of the cooking at home. Some examples of successful programs at Northwestern have been our partnerships with Family Focus and the North Shore Senior Center. So Family Focus is the site I mentioned before where we were trying to pilot the family program. It's actually a summer meal site that we deliver to, and we've been leading summer nutrition ed there for several years, as well as doing some after-school programming in the fall and spring. Since these students have seen both of our Building Blocks and Sowing Seeds curricula, we're constantly kind of getting creative with alternative lessons, changing up activities, and incorporating more advanced material. And it's been really neat to see them progress through that process. Another example I have up here, YOU, is Youth Opportunity United. And they're actually going to be a new youth nutrition ed site for us in the fall. So we're arranging for them to come and shadow one of our lessons at Family Focus this summer so they can see our program in action. This can be a really good option if you're looking to expand to multiple sites. You can use your successful programs as references. And the North Shore Senior Center is a local organization that was actually already leading monthly wellness club meetings at 2 low-income housing buildings that we currently deliver to. And we were able to partner with them to bring additional nutrition ed materials and healthy snacks to their monthly meetings, and also to advertise their club to our current meal recipients in the building. So really making sure that that partnership was mutually beneficial. And then I know that the Kitchen at UMass Boston has developed and led some of their own successful youth nutrition ed programs, and the Kitchen at Washington and Lee has also led nutrition ed, but outside of the CKP curricula. They worked with a program called Teen Cuisine from Virginia Tech, and they actually had a representative from that program come and train some of their student leaders to lead nutrition ed workshops. So there definitely are other options outside of the CKP curricula, but these have been really successful programs and would eliminate a lot of the lesson planning that you would normally need to do. As mentioned before, we have a lot of resources available for expanding the building blocks and sowing seeds lessons if you're working with a group that's already seen those curricula or if they need some more advanced material. I've also been working this year on developing another 6-lesson series for middle school students that I'm hoping our next VISTA at Northwestern can pilot at that family focus location with some of our students that have aged out of the current group we work with. And I'm happy to share those with anyone interested in that age group. They cover some topics like hydration, basic cooking skills, and preparing healthy snacks. And then you can also think about nutrition ed outside of the classroom. So if you're able to table at your local farmers market or other events, you can think ahead and have some quick kids activities and flyers with some nutrition information and recipes on hand to draw people over to your table and engage them in a quick discussion. We've had a lot of luck with that at the farmers market and also at some mobile food pantry stops around our local community.
All right, so we'll turn it over to any questions. So just remember to unmute yourself before you ask your question, or you can type it into that chat box. Let's see. All right, so Linda would like to know, saying, she said at Campus Kitchen at University of Florida, they use a curriculum developed by faculty in their department focused on My Plate. YUM, Youth Understanding My Plate, and I like that a lot. And wondering if it's available to provide outside of their Florida Extension programs. It's a good question. I think it probably would have to do with, Linda, were you asking if they can provide the YUM program outside, or if we can provide some of our nutrition programs outside? You check. Okay, excellent. So that might be a great resource to share, and certainly if that's a possibility, then we'll continue to share that out in possibly in a newsletter or an e-blast along those lines. That's great. Thanks, Linda. Any other questions? I know we had ahead of time some questions about possibly some evaluation metrics. Sarah, Erin, would one of you be able to maybe talk a little bit about evaluating the program?
Yeah, so each lesson includes pre and post tests that allow you to kind of gauge how much the students are picking up from each lesson, how much they're learning and understanding, and you can then tailor the rest of your lesson plan based on the results of these surveys. If you find from the pre and post tests that your students aren't understanding any of what you taught in the previous lesson, you might want to incorporate more review into your following lesson. But on the other hand, if you find in the pre-test that the students really already have a good grasp of the lesson that you had planned, then it might be a good idea to advance the topics of that lesson. Sarah, do you have anything to add as far as evaluation goes?
Yeah, I think you've really captured it. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can structure it a couple different ways. So you could administer a pre and post test at each lesson, or you could choose to administer a pre-test before each lesson and then a longer post-test at the end of a course. So incorporating several lessons worth of material. And I worked with a group of younger students at Family Focus one time, and they were just a little too young and rambunctious to sit still for pre and post testing, so we kind of did it a little more informally. I did a Nutrition Jeopardy game at the end to kind of gauge what they had retained from the lesson. So I think there are really important formal ways of capturing that data, and then also you can make it a little more fun and informal, just for your own knowledge what they've captured and what still needs review.
Excellent. I love the idea of doing a Jeopardy. That's great. Any other questions?
We do have one more slide after this with links to a few of the resources we've been talking about. Everything that's linked here is up on the pantry if you have access to that, and then those are contacts. Definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything we've discussed today. I'm happy to share any of the resources we've talked about via email as well.
Absolutely. And I don't think I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, but this is recorded, so I'll be sending the link out to this webinar in just a little while. So you can rewatch it or share it with other members of your team who you think might benefit from it. And I'll also send out those links in that email as well, just so everybody has access to them pretty easily.
And just a final shout out to anyone who might be interested in piloting Healthy Living for Families. Please reach out to us.
Hey, this is Linda Bobroff at the University of Florida. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I did send an email to our LT and letting them know that you were interested in piloting the program, and I'll see what I get. They've been really enjoying doing the nutrition education, especially with the young children. We also have a curriculum for older adults, and I'm trying to encourage them to go to the senior centers and do some work with the older adults here in Gainesville. So there's a big need for that as well.
Wonderful.
That sounds great.
Thanks for doing this. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Do your emails go to the students, to the leadership team? Because I know I usually forward what I get from Campus Kitchen Project and to our president. And I know in the past she said she never gets the emails. So is that possible for that to happen, for them to get it also? So
absolutely. And Linda, I can connect with you offline too to make sure, and we can double check who is on our list from your team.
Is it usual though that it would go to the students as well as the advisor?
Yeah, so usually we have a couple of primary and secondary contacts that the emails go to. So I'll check in with you awesome. and make sure we got the right people on that list.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, and if there isn't any last minute questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And we'll say a big thank you to Sarah and Aaron for putting this all together. And like I said, keep an eye out for that email going out in just a little bit with all of these links. And if you have any questions, obviously you can email Aaron or Sarah or let me know. I'm more than happy to connect you with the right people or send you resources that you need. So thank you all for attending today, and have a great afternoon.